Alex Ansary here. It is June 6th, 2016 at 8:03 in the morning. This is going to be a follow-up to the last podcast where I talked about my initial recovery from heroin addiction in the year 2004. So it's been 12 years, and I feel like some follow-up commentary is absolutely needed. More of a focus on the causes and conditions that lead many people to addiction today, with extra emphasis on certain areas on the planet being hit harder, or the people being affected more in certain parts of the planet than other places. You're going to notice that this is fairly unorthodox information that is not at all welcome or found in the rooms of AA. I have also, upon posting something on Facebook, when I post something positive, when I actually release something regarding my soul, an aspect of myself, my life experience, when I'm really moving forward in life, that's when the hateful comments will come out. And it's really been minimal the last week or so, but I was just kind of noticing how, when things go, they go in spurts, and often with the solar flares, often during the geomagnetic storms, that inner troll, that inner bitch, that inner dickhead, it's amazing how it comes out in the cyber realms. One woman whose name I've never seen comment on anything before says, if you're an insider, whatever the fuck she meant by that, well you can't talk about AA or NA. What's said in the room stays in the room. Like, just shitting on my post, which basically says that my recovery is one that had to exist outside the recovery rooms for very specific reasons. Why would someone attack someone saying they did it on their own and they found that it was in their best interest to find out what real recovery was? We're going to talk about that today, and that's being who you really are, doing what you are here to do, not being in toxic relationships, environments, or situations that overtake you if you're not strong enough to push back society's influence. So when someone says congratulations to me, it's awkward, and because of the way this experience feels, it can feel insulting. I know that sounds strange, and the reason is I feel like a different person. That during that solar cycle, during that epoch of time that ended around 2003 and 2004, I felt myself aligning with my true self as I stumbled upon the truth about a wide variety of things that have already been discussed on this channel. I felt myself aligning, coming into alignment with the real Alex S. Ansary. There's a real you out there. Maybe you're already living it. Maybe you're still on the path of seeking it. And we all may be connected, but we are at different levels of sensitivity. So, touching upon root causes and conditions, a lot of these things are not touched upon by your average recovery rooms and the 12 steps. The 12 steps have a very specific approach to addiction, beginning with you were born powerless. And you must adopt ways of looking at yourself and God or the universe. I'm not an atheist, however. So don't assume this is some sort of vengeance of the atheist commentary. I've always believed in a creator, and I've always asked the creator for help, but certain things you do have to do yourself. There isn't part of your consciousness that goes on autopilot and God takes over. So there's certain thinking that people have adopted, and from being around those rooms during those years, I saw the ongoing dysfunction, not only with the addicts, the so-called recovery addicts, but how unattracted I was to the so-called recovery addicts that were now counselors. And I actually warn women to this day, I warn people to this day about counselors in the field. Some of them are recovering addicts who think they really know their shit because, wow, they've been to prison and they survived prison and now they're a counselor. I mean, people's standards for success is in a dirty toilet bowl. Excuse the imagery. People's measures of success in today's day and age are poor excuses for measures of success, measures of recovery, measures of self-awareness. Because we are more than human beings that can somehow put on a smile as we get together over chips and ping pong and chain-smoking cigarettes and coffee as we have our AA conference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. So why don't you work it? Work it. I mean, okay, it's time for our 12-step pre-ramble. Here are the rules. Here are the structures. Here's this matrix of structure of controlled thought that we've created for ourselves because we don't have faith in ourselves. I'm not trying to be mean to anyone. I am warning people against this mentality that it's through those rooms that your recovery takes place. And there is damage that can occur in those rooms and outside those rooms when people hook up with the wrong friends, the wrong sponsors, when people are encouraged to guilt trip themselves and obsess upon problems that maybe they don't have, and to ignore the strengths and power, the inner wisdom, the inner light. In the world of AA, you do not have knowledge and information within you connected to the universe. Are you hearing this podcast? Are you hearing this podcast? Can you hear me now? You don't have a divine inner light, inner child, inner world of knowledge at your fingertips inside you in the world of AA. In fact, that's the kind of thinking that can get you schooled in the world of hard knocks, AA style, where everything is about the book. And then even more schizophrenic is the AA-NA divide, even though they're based on 12 steps. People think that they have to associate with the person that did exactly what they did. How many people have I met in AA over the years, during those years, that may have been in AA for years, but, oh no, the NA meeting's over there. No, I see your program as being the same. So if I'm to adopt your philosophies of first step, second step, third step, fourth step, inventory, going over resentments, I think there's aspects of the 12-step program that have merit, that deal with helping others. And I've done a 4th-step, but the thing is, having a sense of resentment, or someone may have abused you, or certain things may have gone on, or certain things you have a right to feel. However, those resentments and anger could create blockages that are clearly causing you problems. Ultimately, we help ourselves by helping others. And my video series in general, whether it be about relationships, whether it be about politics, and trying to help people see some of the more strategic places to relocate in the United States. I mean, this channel is pretty broad. But also because it's broad, I lose a lot of people's interest that would like to hang around. They just can't handle being exposed to stuff that they don't agree with. It's difficult for people. But, folks, this channel is going to continue to be diverse. And some of you may have seen me interview a man that recovered from crack. And the interview was done in 2006 in a television studio in Portland, Oregon, PCM TV. And I interviewed Savon Lindsay, who wrote a book of poetry regarding his experiences in Oakland, California, and in Portland, Oregon, and other places, regarding his addiction. And I think that's where the real healing does occur, though, when you hear someone else's story. That is the healing aspect that, I'll just say it for what it is. Call it for what it is. AA/NA commercializing, even though it's non-commercial, don't talk to me like I'm an idiot, I know what AA is. But capitalizing, rather, and then that goes beyond money. Capitalizing on people sharing from their heart, but also adding in rules. I mean, you go into meetings where it's like, okay, You can share, but try to keep your story related to the 12 steps. Don't go off the topic of the 12 steps. On paper, hey, share honestly about your experience, strength, and hope to a point. And the question is, how healing is that? I've heard hundreds of stories from people that have talked for an hour straight about their addiction. And I have seen people 5 years into their sobriety, 10 years into their sobriety, clearly showing me that they have not recovered from certain things. Maybe the drug, but they have not sprouted their own wings. They've actually clipped their own wings. They've admitted a concept of fallacy that they have no power, and they have agreed to this energetic contract with AA as an institution, as a collective. And people may have recovered through AA. It's not AA that did the recovery for them or chose not to use. It may have been the fact that they had people to talk to. Something as simple as that, and AA or NA may have provided that structure. There's plenty of people out there that are discontent with... I don't know why these people keep driving up here and parking right behind. This is really rude. Can't take a walk. I'll explain in a moment. What I'm doing is camping in the National Forest in southwest Colorado, and for some reason there are people that are pulling up and parking behind my RV as if my RV is a parking lot and not a campsite. So there's definitely a lot of rude behavior in today's day and age. So I want to hold this thought. So I'm actually walking down. One of the things that you're going to hear me talk about on this channel is the concept of recovering from society's influence. And so when someone congratulates me for recovering from that phase of my life, it feels awkward because I'm still in a state of recovery, but it's not from the drugs. It's from society's impact. And drugs are a part of society. Things like opiates and heroin. So you want to think big. And people, for example, though, as I sit back down, yes, there are some people that have been assisted by a semi-controlled environment where there are people having coffee and sitting down for, say, an hour, and there being some sort of, ground rules. Okay, we're going to keep our sharing down to 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and this person's going to call on people at random, or you can raise your hand for people to come together in a cooperative community type of a setting like that. That doesn't need AA. A few addicts or alcoholics or people in general, like church, wherever 2 or more meet or 3 or more meet, and then someone speaking and someone listening. So the whole foundation of AA is Bill W. being in a hospital and talking to his friend, or his friend talking to him, and then him paying back, if you will, energetically, and speaking to someone in a hospital room. And then you have 2 people and 3 people, and before you know it, you have AA. And so it sprouted from one thing, and then followers, people that are already in bad situations that are just looking for an institution, they gravitate to AA and the rules and structure around it because perhaps they had no structure. So, you see people go anybody but Bush, anybody but Obama, not to bring politics into this, but there are people with that type of lesser of evils way of looking at life. Instead of, let's not go for lesser of evils, let's go for what this actually should be, what a politician should be, the way our lives should be, what real recovery is. And so I think that there's been some evolution consciously with regards to maybe recovery and spirituality as more people become spiritually aware on a true level, not a monotheistic level. AA comes from monotheism. You have to look outside of yourself to something greater than yourself, even if you call it a door handle. Just don't let it be yourself. But you can make that door handle your higher self. And so anyone that hangs in AA long enough will find themselves surrounded by people that actually don't have real spiritual backbone. And they'll see that as the common thread, that have been programmed to not see the power in themselves, because that is step one of AA. You have no power. If you had power, according to AA, you wouldn't be an addict or alcoholic. And then there's the arrogance that the book alludes to, and that a friend of mine that used to be big into AA, a big book thumper, kind of like a Bible thumper. There's a reason why the Bible, not to put down the Bible, but there's a reason why the dogmatic expression of religion mirrors AA, or that AA mirrors the dogmatic aspects of religion, including the lack of love, the focus on how romance and even some aspects of human sexuality can heal trauma relating to self-abuse that could lead in death to death or suicide or homicide even. We have been taken away from our real human nature. And there's a lot of people from broken homes and families who never learned how to have the right relationship themselves, so they're lonely themselves. There are deep-seated issues that people are going through in those rooms that are not being addressed by their theology and by their steps. And the issues that they went into that room, unless their issue was, I really just need to hear someone else talk. That was my issue. I just haven't heard anyone else talk about their own issues. You know, some people just need that. And AA is good to hear other people's stories. And some AA meetings allow openness of sharing. There is flexibility as to whether or not you're walking into a room full of dictators, where a few people control the show and control, in a way, the energies and minds and how deeply people share from the heart. There are AA rooms like that. There are AA rooms that remind you of the Islamic world. Women over here, men over here. Why? Because we obviously have issues with the opposite sex. Why say that? And why encourage issues with the opposite? Why encourage this idea that men are men and women are women, and we share from the heart over here, and then they share from the heart over there, and we're separated? I mean, what's missing? Veils, burqas? Might as well bring out some AA burqas while you're at it. Yalla, yalla, keep coming back. It works if you work it, if you work it. You know, people want to talk about, like, you know, religion used to control. I have met some interesting people that were on the spiritual path, I think, during that time period. I think one of them, off and on, she listens to this. I wonder if I have a feeling that she has evolved beyond the rooms. I haven't seen her in many, many years, and it was many years before that I saw her in the rooms at the Alano Club in Northwest Portland, as well as Micah. Shout out to Micah if you're listening as well. I remember us having conversations at the coffee shop about the steps, and they found themselves exiting Portland, and they still listen to some, I'm sure at least some, of my content. And anyone that hasn't thrown me away, male or female, that's allowed me to have my own view and take on Portland, that seems to get it on a level, that also left themselves, that are also recovered, that are also living off the grid. So if you're out there, in your next comment to me, and if you're hearing this podcast, I'm curious to know from both of you, maybe you can write me on email, maybe I'll do a follow-up podcast about your recovery living off the grid, and how you don't need AA for life. I'm going to guess that you guys are living off the grid in sobriety without AA. But would you not agree that when we were friends, that there was a consensus reality that you had to keep going to these meetings? Would you agree or would you disagree with me that life got better for you and your love life when you got outside of the energy of Alberta Street? and Portland? Something tells me already that the answer is yes. Now, you know that I know. I know that you know that I know. Hey, Portland has some really awesome things going on with it. And I would really honestly say more so the past than now, because I'm not into big cities. Portland was a big city, but it wasn't like it was manageable. You know, it didn't have the energetic, you are being invaded. You are now being invaded. Prepare to be assimilated. The Borg is upon you. Luke, I am your father. I mean, it didn't have that same type of Google takeover, Portlandia. You know, the ship is sinking, folks. The ship is sinking. Rats are fleeing a sinking ship. It didn't quite have that level of panic and doom and gloom. It had the goth dark side, like, hey man, take a walk on the wild side. But something sound a little bit more like Teen Spirit from Nirvana. No, 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 no. No, it's more Seattle, but I mean that whole yeah, we're angry youth. Oh yeah, and fucking all the fucking, and being in Portland, you're inundated with a lot of evil. You know, a lot of sexual energy that's not the highest. It's not liberated. It's the repressed kink, and people go in those directions of strip clubs and porno bookstores back in the day. Now it's all video. They used to have the bookstores where the creepy dudes would hang out. You know, the Jack Shacks where people would pop in a quarter and literally just start whacking as fast as they could, and they go back to work. Like, this was old Portland. Now it's digital video. Now a lot of stuff's on people's computers. Back in the day, man, that was out there along with the alcohol, the drugs. So excess. We don't have to call it sin or vice. Excess. Escapism. Escapism. Get high, get numb, get happy, whatever. Just get some. And I talked about that in previous videos. Talked about the Shanghai tunnels. I'm going to do a future video where I feature a documentary that's already been put out there on YouTube, but I'm going to add some of my commentary in the beginning and the end. But it's important that my audience see this commentary and this video on the Shanghai tunnels. When they talk about drug addiction in Portland, they'll never talk about the tunnels. When they talk about the tunnels in old Portland, they do the tours. The guy's great. He puts on a great presentation. He doesn't talk about the phenomena of the hardcore self-abuse going on above his head. Now, no, not only in that part of Portland, but epicenter. It being an epicenter. So bringing this back to root causes, because we're kind of going back and forth. Sometimes environmental factors, just like childhood abuse, sexual abuse, or certain areas where that's what's going on, sometimes those are the factors that are contributing to the person making the poor decision. The person has always had the power. The person has always had the power to access the right knowledge for themselves and to carry out the right thing. You have the free will. Okay, but certain things can lead to us losing power. Certain things can lead to us being vampired on. And these things can precede the decision to relapse. This lack of power can and does. It is a lack of power. It is a lack of personal power. Prana, chi, ki, will. The will. And then I was also taught. And then my friend, the same person, this is what I want you guys to hear. This is like someone that voted for Bush telling you to vote for Obama to telling you to vote for Trump. This person that encouraged me to shoot up for the first time at 19 during that period, who was one of my few friends at the time, a male friend, and I was working at Fred Meyer and living in my apartment downtown, and we'd hang out together. We both had unique, what is this matrix type of philosophies, even way back then before 9/11. So there were reasons why we were friends to begin with, and we really started questioning our reality as we were recovering. But the fact of the matter is, when this guy got sober before me, and he was going to the meetings religiously, he wasn't a religious person, but he literally made AA his religion. And so some of the things that I was discussing regarding my recovery, he would make it and direct it back to the big book. And so going to this conversation about the propaganda about us being powerless, certain things would be said in the book that I would consider arrogant, like, well, if a man could fucking drink, blah, blah, well, our hats are off to him. But people would actually echo this, but the kind of like really arrogant, like, well, fucking go ahead, fucker. If you think you're that good, it's not about going back out. Talk about a straw man argument built into AA. It's about another way of looking at recovery. Real recovery of some sort of wound. I mean, this isn't the American medical establishment where your heart is like an individual unit. The body is a holistic system. That's why naturopathic medicine, that's why other forms of health and wellness are to be considered if someone has a physical ailment. Why is it not the same with drug addiction when someone is trying to fill a void? Well, what is that void? And in a world regarding spiritual parasites, which are not discussed in AA, drug demons, just like sex demons, where people can be influenced by something that's attached to them. So their religious belief systems, being that AA is the only thing that's real, and you can reference God and worship God and say you have no power and God's the only way, completely misinterpreting God and leaving out the gargoyles and demons of this realm. If there's a God, there's a devil. There is no devil in AA. There is no deceiving energy, frequency, archonic theme discussed in the big book of AA. But there's God. But what's the opposite then of God? In your old description of being powerless. So this friend would laugh at the idea of us having power. The idea of someone being able to do it themselves. And they would say, well, I tried willpower. And they could be discussing themselves as a teenager, trying their hardest so their own failure at willpower as a younger person or even as an adult is used as their textbook evidence for why they failed, instead of realizing, well, maybe it was their youth. Maybe they had not ever known what their own power was because they're not in a culture that promotes yourself having inner power, inner wisdom, inner light, eating the right things, drinking water exposed to sunlight, perhaps traveling, having a strong ki, a strong energy center, also known as prana, also known as chi. Certain martial arts and qigong and other things, along with healthy exposure to the sun, even sunbathing, all these things and more can provide healing to the human body, the Earth's magnetic field, the body's magnetic field, rather. But there is a connection between ourselves and the sun and the Earth's magnetic field and the Earth itself. Absolutely, there is a connection. So if I make a slip every now and then, maybe it's a Freudian subliminal slip regarding our magnetic field versus the Earth's magnetic field. We are a micro-universe in and of ourselves. And so there are things going on with these solar flares and energy changes that I've been researching for years. And other people are still not getting it. And before I start making some points that I want to make regarding the sun and addiction in certain areas, this should remind you of how much further humanity has to grow intellectually, spiritually, and I would say even emotionally, for them to even be able to hold back their fearful emotions of their ego being threatened and actually embrace a greater pool of information, how humans are affected by the stars. More so than astrology, how humans are affected by the sun. So someone emails me, contacts me on Facebook, fairly attractive girl woman that moved up to Portland from Texas, and she never acted like some Portland women. Oh my God, why do you say this? Why do you share this perspective? It's so against our belief systems. As a newcomer, she's been fairly open and listening. And who knows what happened, but she's in a treatment center, outpatient, which means you come and go and you do the UAs. And sometimes it's court mandated, and in a lot of cases it's also voluntary. There are a number of places where someone, if they're not wealthy, they can get on some state insurance, and they can start going to certain places for the recovery. This provides an alternative to AA. However, I bet there's some great counselors, first of all, that have actually been around the block, but they're not the majority. Okay, the majority of the counselors are just pushing paperwork. And I'm sorry that it sounds that they may be helping on a level, but they're a part of the machine. But there are some people out there that are able to maintain their own spirituality, that somehow got involved in drug counseling, that aren't there to just force down a belief system down other people's throat, to demand that they go to AA. And AA, by the way, is supposed to be voluntary. The courts getting involved in mandating AA, and counselors mandating AA, and this being a part of their system, this is not recovery. This is not recovery. And it violates a person's religious belief systems. Okay. You can believe in God and have your religious belief system violated by being forced to go to AA. What do you mean I'm powerless? There's plenty of belief systems out there regarding God and the Supreme Being, and us being a being of light. And there may be things like karma involved in those belief systems. What goes around comes around. Consciousness. There may be themes within those belief systems where they reference demons, the jinn, archons, unclean spirits that are working against God's creation, also edited out of the religion of AA. So AA is stepping on someone's religious belief systems if someone is court mandated to go to AA. They may be given a great opportunity to get out of a bad situation. I'm aware of that. I'm aware of DUI laws. I'm aware. What you're not aware of, some of you, are this alternative perspective to AA being the way for one's recovery. And you're not used to the perspective of hearing about spiritual parasites, drug parasites, that actually congregate around certain areas where they have the worst of the worst. Parasites that feed on human pain and suffering. You're not accustomed to the idea of certain people being targeted by spiritual parasites to become drug addicts through mind control because of the powerful energy. Power. Again, back to power. Power and more power. Chi and life force in the field around our human body. There's something about the emotions excreted etherically by those powerful individuals. It's a very strong essence. It's a very strong, painful emotion. When I'm in pain or others are in pain, it's a very strong frequency because we're naturally strong and powerful. And you're not going to stop being powerful. But you can fall to a certain extent, fall off the wagon, and be very powerful at doing a lot of drugs. You can be very powerful at doing things that aren't very moral. You can be very powerful at being in a very negative emotional state like you've never been. It's still power. It's misdirected power. It's being out of balance. There should be more focus on people coming into balance and in line with their masculine, feminine sides or whatever, in line with who they are as a first step. Okay, first you get clean. Now let's go for a bike ride. Breathe. Now, screw this. No, you're going to go have coffee with her. Don't jump into anything too serious. You guys are both young and recovered, but you know what? You guys should go out and talk and heal and take a walk in the park. Who the fuck is saying you're Muslim now? You're a Muslim AA member. No, they'll never say the Muslim word. They'll say don't 13th step. There's nothing saying don't 13th step. Don't meet a woman or don't meet a man in the book of AA. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. People with their problems with men and women that jockey themselves into a position of influence within an AA room because their ego is that bruised and damaged. You're seeing the effect of the person that believes they have no power. So they're subconsciously getting their power that they have relinquished by telling other people how to live. Now, does that sound familiar to you? Boy, somebody ring a dinner bell. Does that sound familiar to you? People that are not tapped into their own power, trying to take the power from others. AA, you have no power. You have to adopt our understanding of how God works. God has power, but you don't have power. This is our version of religion. Because, again, other versions of religion are not that backwards. Like, wait a minute. You're just making this shit up as you go along as an ex-alcoholic Bill W. from a fucking wheelchair from a fucking hotel room, hospital room where you're puking into a bucket, but you later did acid and you experience an expansion of consciousness. Even though acid is a substance that many AA people would look at as non-therapeutic. They would look at ayahuasca and even marijuana as completely non-therapeutic. On the other side of the coin, since I said the M word, unrestrained use of marijuana is addiction. And there's a lot of marijuana addicts out there. And it is being promoted within our culture because the end result is that most people, under the influence of marijuana, they don't speak out against things that are going on. That's what I've seen, unless it's a hemp issue. I don't know very many smokers in the alternative media. I smoke occasionally. But, and sometimes I smoke a lot because that's my freedom. Now, it's someone else's sickness to want to attack me for the freedoms that I enjoy that don't harm anyone else. But there is harm and stuff in your emotions. But just because someone smokes marijuana doesn't mean that they automatically have to go to sleep and not care about anything, man. Just relax, man. We know from the record of this YouTube channel that I have continued at all times, to speak about the issues that matter to me. Hell, during some old episodes of Outside the Box TV, I smoked a little green before the show. But never mistake the responsible use of marijuana that I am promoting with taking a position that there is no such thing as marijuana being addictive. In fact, I think that some of the most successful people that I have met, that I know, or that I'm associated with, or have been associated with, the most successful and fit men that I have known have been non-marijuana smokers. And that's a fact, Jack. That's a fact, Jack. So there's a responsible use of coffee. Some could even say nicotine, although there is no real responsible use of nicotine for me. Nicotine crack, as I choose to call it. Because it has a very adverse effect on my mind, body, and most of all, spirit. Spirit. So I have coined the worship by so many American spirits as nicotine crack, because I lay here under the sun, because I've seen it crack out my mind, body, and spirit in a way like few other substances have. I kid you not. So we have different levels of sensitivity, bringing us back down to that conversation. People are at different levels of being able to handle life in this world. Now, things like grounding and dealing with those stuck emotions, also called images or pictures, and through visualization techniques, we can heal aspect of ourselves. Certain things can accelerate a healing process. Love, self-love, or love from others, romance, exercise, good food, nutrition, access to sunlight, and some things can really stall the healing process. Not allowing love into your heart, because others that have been hurt and broken want to mind fuck others. And again, back to the AA down 13 step. Don't think that we've seen it, we felt it. Don't become heartless. No, you're powerless, and God will help you. God will help you. What's God? I mean, again, their whole idea of God is counter. It could be a door handle as long as it's not you. So some people need some additional healing, and they need to be directed towards the truth. What is real recovery? And they need to do it quickly, and they need to do it that day, and they need to do it that week. Not be held back by AA and then jumping to the other. You have the rational recovery, and I'm sure there's different versions of that, cognitive recovery. Having never been in any of those, I cannot comment. But the conversation of recovery is as widespread as somebody's opinion. So are there rooms out there where they may have done some amazing work? There's a reason probably why some of those programs actually charge a great deal of money. In a lot of cases, it's a ripoff, and it's geared towards people with money or celebrities. I mean, it's a lot of money to go and live in a 30-day, 28-day treatment program. But are some of them potentially worth it, or even the outpatient ones, where that counselor who comes across as intuitive, loving, intelligent, not just an arrogant counselor who they're a dime a dozen. The people that have never actually been addicts, but they've gone to school for a long time, and so school has told them about establishment ways of looking at recovery and drug addiction. Oh, would this be by chance the same establishment where being a drug addict is a mental illness that can actually get you money from the federal government? That kind of establishment. So you have something outside of AA, which are these rational recovery meeting halls and meeting rooms with counselors with degrees that make big bucks, that may in some cases see themselves as better than the addicts, that they really, I remember a guy, short story. So I was, let's see, I was probably 16 years old, maybe 14, and I would take a bus to the YMCA and lift weights and hit the heavy bag. And I noticed then, man, this guy looks like an arrogant jackass. Like you see that guy at the market, like chomping on his gum with his mouth open. Yeah, yeah, Maybe he's got a cell phone. Well, he's got the glasses, and maybe they're a little bit fit, so they think they're a little cocky. Maybe they're a little bit bike rider. They're a robo yuppie, super yuppie on yuppie roids. And who knows what the deal? They got a polo shirt. I mean, they're from the 80s, the 90s. Like they're like an old school yuppie who's like now in their 45, 50 period. Anyway, this guy, I just remember being a young man looking at him going, that guy's a douchebag. Here I am, years later at the age of 19 years old, and before I got in any trouble with the law, I was checking myself into a outpatient drug treatment place. I would say, about 6 months after I started using, I went out on a search for help. I would be talking to my friends about my problem. I was still in something that lasted a few years, was involved in my addiction, but I was actually looking for recovery right away. And so part of my story involving recovery, by the way, involves me getting involved in alternative media and finding my voice, and then like this miraculous healing taking place, like the obsession to use being lifted. After I learned about world affairs, after I learned about 9/11, after I learned about the government bringing the drugs in, I had my own spiritual experience. And a lot of you already know this already, unless you're a new viewer and listener that's specifically looking for recovery information about drugs and alcohol. And if that's the case, again, subscribe to this channel and hear what I'm saying about what's happening to the rest of society. And bring yourself to a state of sanity if you are in a state of insanity of believing that there's addicts and normal people. The world is not a normal place. These are not normal people. There are not addicts with feelings and then the normal people. There are, and get away from this, I'm an addict, alcoholic, negative affirmation thing as well. I remember there was a female counselor that stated her opposition to this way of thinking, who was a counselor at St. Vincent de Paul in their inpatient program. And I remember for me, the years being there was 2001. And I remember really appreciating, I was, when 9/11 happened, I was in there. So my recovery, being born half Afghani and questioning the official story of 9/11 and having basically no family to speak of, and recovering from a lot of childhood abuse and dealing with intuitive feelings about the future that I actually had since I was a kid, including solar flares and surviving a power outage and having to fight for my survival on a hill with a red sky. I remember seeing these things as an 8-year-old. And so, to bring it back down to suffering, a lot of people are suffering that are stuffing their feelings. Avoid is one way to mention it. There are others, childhood traumas, other traumas that they're not aware of. And these things need to be understood. And these things need to be examined personally by the person brave enough, powerful enough, intuitive enough, intelligent enough, hungry enough. Are you hungry enough for your recovery? Yes or no? How bad do you want this? Because if you don't want this bad enough, you're not going to work hard enough at your own recovery. Your recovery from the influence and damage that society has brought to you. And the influence of drugs and alcohol are of society, but they are not the root. They are a branch. The drugs and alcohol are not the root. They're a branch of society's influence on you and how you handle your emotions. You may not realize consciously that your drug and alcohol problem has come from the fact that you are stuffing your feelings, your thoughts, and who you actually are to coexist at the job that you hate, to coexist in the relationship that you hate, to coexist on that school field, playing field, in the school, classrooms, be it middle school, high school, or college, military school, or something affiliated with the church. Is there an aspect of your spirituality that is being neglected? Can you see the God in everything? Can you see the perfection in this universe? Despite all the pain and all the turmoil, do you see, or are you able to see, or are you willing to see how everything is connected in some way, shape, or form? No, I don't think that all is love. I think that everything is connected in some way, shape, or form. We're here to learn things, and we're here for a reason. And I'm not going to force specific belief systems down your throat, but I'm being broad here. And I think that if you're going to come to a belief and understanding of how things work on this universe, you should work to achieve that belief system and understanding. It's like martial arts. Yeah, you can take a form of karate, but ultimately you're not going into kata if it's a self-defense situation. You have to know how to use that elbow, that ridge hand, that straight punch in an organic, natural way. Not a big fan of MMA, but MMA is based around automatic responses, sparring, using those martial art techniques in a offensive-defensive situation, usually offensive because, the UFC is human cockfighting. But to actually know on your own 2 feet, how to respond and how to act because you know what you're doing, that's what I'm getting at. Picking up a crusty or accepting a free book from someone and saying, oh, just go to page 449 and read about resentments. That's all you need. Really, because, the book actually starts on page 1. Or I'm sorry, with a preamble. Don't forget there's a book that just is the book of rules. Nothing to do with recovery, but everything to teach you about obedience and structure, because of course you need structure, you need concrete, you need rules, because you're powerless, because your previous life experiences showed you you're powerless. I'm not being serious, I'm being sarcastic. This is the bullshit that has to be called out. Just because Someone may have lived a life as a youth or in the society, being a product of their society, and they were obviously powerless because they were taught to think powerless as it was. Don't tell me those people were acting like they were all powerful in reality. Nobody that truly believes in their own power is going to abuse themselves close to death, be it with meth, heroin, or otherwise. They may act like they think they're powerful. They know how weak they are as they go grab another bag, as their, refrigerator has no food in it, and they have family, and their kids are crying, their family's seeing their abuse. Don't tell me they're in their power. In fact, and I'm glad I remembered to share this, because it came to me yesterday after that podcast that I did, 12 years later after heroin addiction, and 11 years later, by the way, after starting my own TV show. Notice the connection between my recovery and helping others the way I see fit through discussing events going on today in the world as seen on this YouTube channel. I've seen no other man or woman ever, anywhere talk about the connection between activism and recovery. Derek Bros touches on it through his experience, but I really have not heard others speak about it. So it came to me yesterday that I was actually playing a part in using the law of attraction without knowing it. And there are certain situations that could have been worse when I was using. I felt, first of all, divine intervention in some cases. In other cases, I'm amazed at how much money I was able to spend. Money out of my pocket. There wasn't a whole lot of criminal actions that I was involved in outside of the crime of using a illegal substance. But there was being a little deceptive at certain corporate grocery stores. We'll just leave it at that. During that time period. And there were aspects of my intuition that were with me during that period. And you can even say luck, that I applied my energy, my power towards being successful in certain endeavors, and getting across town and getting that bag at that hour of 2 o'clock in the morning. Like, things just seemed to work out in a smooth manner because I was applying my will. So you know where I'm going with this. If somebody can apply their will and their power and their intuition to help them get that bag of dope and to stay out of harm's way because they have it together just enough, of course you can get really high and all fucked up and come down and lose some of that power, but you can be in a position of having your power and being high as a kite and going for more because you're on the run. And what a run it is. Don't tell me that power doesn't transfer over to the real living waking state, the sobriety state, and redirecting that power and will and intuition. All these dirty words. Alex got a AA potty mouth. See, that woman yesterday is a prime example of what AA does to people. Like literally you could say, no, I'm not going to vote for Bernie Sanders. Fuck you and fuck Donald Trump. No, I'm not voting for Donald Trump either. Wow, you're stupid. So the AA person hears me like, Alex, you think you can fucking go out and do it again? Go out. No. You're doing a straw man argument, McFly. No one's suggesting going back out. Your use of a straw man argument is indicative you have no argument to support AA as a real form of recovery. It's the community aspect of AA that is healing. It is the sharing with people that are open to hearing your story that is healing. Many AA meetings do not allow what other AA meetings allow. A lot of you are saying, no, we have a 12 steps and 12 traditions to prevent that. No. Because you have power trippers that are trying to take back their own power because they've given up through the negative affirmation their own power. People are taking away the power of others to share how they're really recovering. And they will say, if it's not found in this book, If it cannot be collaborated with the information in this book, it may be best if it not be said at all. That's in the 12 steps, and that is in the 12 traditions. What that means is, unless what you're saying can be collaborated with our book, maybe you should keep your mouth shut. Is that really open-hearted sharing? Or is that control and domination? And are there rules and regulations that are already set out that people without power want to go out and enforce? Code enforcers, Cruz Soto, shout out. Colleen Romero, Calstia County, shout out. Shout out. Are there other people in this world that will take a position so they can feel a counterfeit sense of power by taking power away from others? Yes. In a lot of cases, it's the chairmen and women in Alcoholics Anonymous today. They'll be the gatekeepers. They'll be the cock blockers. They'll be the ones that hand out the coins. And then every now and then you'll see people that are there that are really on the spiritual path that are handing out the coins too. You will get both. So all the best to people that have found a good room of good people, loving people, that are adopting some of the better principles of AA, but if there's no flexibility to share from the heart why you really used and what your recovery was really all about. See, those two things are really critical. So we could do, no, you used because of this, and your recovery is surrounding this. That's control. That's someone trying to make up for their own admitted lack of power by trying to project on to others. This first step statement of I have no power has created an energetic disturbance collectively in the AA and NA rooms. As I noted yesterday, I saw the way people were acting at the NA Safe from the Streets picnic. And I saw a lot of people donning a lot of tattoos, acting and dressing like they still were bikers. And I've always kind of had a clean cut, that guy looks like a cop kind of demeanor about me. Yes, folks, I am an investigator, but I don't work for law enforcement or government agencies. I'm investigating spiritual warfare. I'm investigating the New World Order. I'm investigating how men and women really are today, relationships. I'm speaking my truth, but I don't work for government agencies. But yes, I'm an investigator, but you don't need to be afraid of me. So I remember how people looked at me. I remember how it felt. I remember how it felt to be an outsider, not another like white biker looking dude in a primarily white city where most of the people in NA were on meth and heroin. And yet my situation was me using a loan for different reasons. And a lot of it dealing with a sense of alienation from society. So what am I supposed to do? Come to a meeting and pretend I'm someone that I'm not? Because that sense of alienation from society was clearly there as well. Another person could realize when they're alienated from society, no matter what they do, you have no other choice but to stop being who you're not and to start being who you are. Maybe you're not someone that just wanders around and works for other people and moves from place to place and goes from relationship to relationship. Maybe the person that you are is someone that is on the front lines of the information. I don't want to use the word war, but on the information campaign globally to shine light on the issues that have been shrouded in darkness for so long. Maybe you came into this planet. Maybe you incarnated. Maybe you exited the womb because you have a role in this. Maybe you have not yet accepted your role in this. Maybe you have not yet accepted your calling in this. And in time, you may, when you find the power within, and not until. And not until. So I've actually covered quite a bit. And through the act of recovering from drugs, you can find yourself. And there's a reason I think subconsciously I chose to jump into the pool of addiction to in the end climb myself out, not through the aid of law enforcement, but volunteering to put myself in an inpatient center for a temporary period in time, no longer than 2.53 months, where some stay for several years and work the system. I realized the need to get out of there and get away from the meetings. And once I aligned with what my soul was responding to, like my soul was feeling activated, my soul was feeling alive, I was feeling alive, I was seeing doors open. As I started my TV show, I was seeing people like David Icke and others and Michael Rupert accept my invitation to come on my TV show. I saw Michael Bowman of the 9/11 Truth movement. Okay, this is Alex Ansary. It is an hour and a half since that, that just moment there. It appears that I have lost 17 minutes of audio on this podcast. So I'm actually going to have to redo a conclusion. So you heard me talk about a lot of stuff. I'm now back in the RV. This is probably going to be one of many podcasts where I'll try to focus my attention on one topic. Today we talked about recovery. I'm highlighting, obviously, this beef that I have with this dogmatic belief system that we have no power. And that's really probably the most important thing that anyone can take away from what I've already shared, and the need to tap into your own power, your own spirit. What are you good at? What are you here on the planet to do? What are you here for? What do you really love? I also discussed the need for intimacy in our lives. What I did not also mention is the other important expression of life. And I'm on this path of being on the road, not tied to a relationship. Some people have come into AA with some serious relationship problems, and what they really need to do is be okay in their own skin. They need to be independent. They need to do something on their own, maybe for a prolonged period of time. So let that be said. The reason why it's important for some of us to either live like a monk, as some people suggest, some people have commented in my recent videos, this is where the solution lies. And I've said this in the past. There's a reason why many monks, for example, have lived in isolation, away from urban environments. There's a theme here. There's a theme here that we can see. I talked about Portland, this history of the trafficking and the ongoing current reality of the trafficking, the slave-like energy, the drugs in that same specific zone. So, if AA wants to sound open, we're going to talk about God, but we're going to really recreate what God is. And we're going to separate you from God. And we're going to make it monotheism without being overtly monotheism, also bringing in some weird spiritual beliefs about making inanimate objects a higher power if you're not comfortable with a monotheistic God. That's more important to them than actually teaching someone how to have their own power, but externalizing power into something literally like a doorknob. So that has, and the more I talk about this, I feel like I'm starting to see it at a very, from a deeper perspective, and the damage that this has caused, the out of balance that this brings to the rooms. I think this is a message that needs to get out there because there's a lot of people that are suffering right now. And they need to know that they are responsible for their own recovery. They need to be told this. They need to be told this. They need to be encouraged to change their environments. They don't have to. There's an expression that I heard from a counselor: don't fly faster than your angel's wings can fly. Okay. Part of that is, it's very difficult for some people to achieve certain things in a short amount of time, to re-enter the workforce, or to stay in a urban environment. A city like Portland, or a place where those drugs, that alcohol, all that's readily available. Sometimes traveling is really, really important. It's not a matter of blaming your environment. It is our nature to be nomadic. For a lot of these people to expect to recover but stay in the same environment where the same activity is going on. I mean, I know it sucks to feel broke and destitute. It's not impossible to find any work if it's that bad, or a means to bring in money through some means other than criminal action, to get out of a suppressive place. Of course, somebody has to come to that awareness on their own. And I don't know if they're going to come to that awareness if they're telling themselves day in and day out that they're powerless, that they need to look outside of themselves. So I'm going to close here. I hope that this reaches the right people. Subscribe if you're a new listener. There's a lot more information that I'm going to bring to this topic. I'm also going to start doing more of these podcasts where I speak about the same topic for about an hour. Let me know down in the comment section if there's a special topic that you want to see me return to. I'm thinking about covering certain topics on a regular basis. Perhaps I'll do something on solar flares once every few months. I'm going over some of the basic information, but I'm also adding in new information, updated information. I'm thinking about an updated conversation about psychic protection in the real world. Some of the things that I think actually works, and also from things that I've read and absorbed from other researchers on this topic, kind of, putting together a package, some of that information and sharing it with you, but also some of the things that leave us open to psychic attack and spiritual attack. And folks, for those of you very serious about your recovery, I would caution against this atheistic, there's nothing real out there. There's nothing more to understand about what's going on in your environment, what's going on with you. Do you have an attachment? Do you have something going on? Have the drugs that you've done attracted certain entities that are making it worse to even get clean to begin with? Do you have drug demons, ma'am? Sir. And unless some of you are actually willing to deal with or drug spirits, you don't have to call them demons. You don't have to call them anything. But there's something going on with the drug addict who has opened themselves up. So in that Psychic Protection podcast, it'll be kind of an updated conversation on the do's, don'ts, so on and so forth. Subscribe if you're new. Donate if you want to help me continue this video series, this podcast series. Help me grow as I do this from the road in my vehicle and not letting my circumstances change things and having just enough to live. And I'm so grateful for that. And if I don't like my environment, if I don't like where I'm parking in the national forest or this small town in Colorado rather, after I left Oregon last year, then I can just start my car up and move. If I save my money because I'm not spending my money on rent in the city, if my transmission blows, which it did a couple months ago, I can spend that $800 and have it repaired because that money is there, because my money's not going to rent. And so we'll talk more about the freedom on the road lifestyle, the do's and don'ts, in addition on another podcast that I'll bring to this channel. I'm Alex Ansary. I'm out. It's June 6, 2016.